I've always wanted to record what it takes to set up our 1989 MacGregor 26D, D standing for dagger board. It takes about 2 hours to get this thing set up. In this case, I'm showing you how I put a zip tie on the light cable so it doesn't come apart on the highway. And this is a light bar that was created by the owner before me. Next up, I'm taking off the strap. I keep it gently snug. I don't wrench it down as hard as I can, in other words. This is our bimini. Getting that out staged next to the back of the boat. This is, I got it for like $100 from somebody who had a different kind of MacGregor, and it kind of fits. You might get the gist of it later. It's not perfect. And this is the motor that I got from the guy with the bimini. No, I think it's like a 2009 or something. It's given us a few hiccups here and there, but I think I almost have to change the spark plugs once a year. And so far, so good doing that. It's a 6 horsepower. Does just fine for the boat. I haven't noticed any lack of power at all. So the motor has a sweet spot where it keeps aligned straight forward back. So if it's off kilter a bit, you have to keep fixing it with the tiller. So I work on making sure that's straight. On the handle of the tiller, I have a little bumper installed there because the friction keeper for the tiller of the motor is worn out, broken. So it bumps up against the hull. So just put that there to keep it from vibrating too much. That's a little keeper to keep the ladder up so it doesn't fall down on the highway. And this is something the previous owner, I guess, created. He was super handy and did lots of neat things. This is a lifter pole. So right now the mast is in a cradle, a wooden cradle board that I think comes from the factory. And then this lifts it up sort of another 3-4 feet, something like that. I put a roller on it. That's a little prototype there so that if I put the mast on it, I can roll the mast. If, let's say I'm at the front of the boat, it'll roll here at the back of the boat, so I can move the mast pretty easily as a single person. Okay, so it goes on the pintles for the rudder. A little safety pin to make sure it doesn't pop off. This is just another angle of what it looks like when I'm setting it up. All right, so the mast lift is ready to go, and this is just a quick look at an old Zodiac I got for like $200. It does the job, provides a bit of a life raft, I suppose, if we need it, and sometimes from ship to shore. In some rare occasions where we anchor out, we usually like to use the dock. Alright, on this particular trip, we have 2 tanks because it's a 3-gallon one, the main one, and then I brought maybe another 3 gallons in the extra one because we're going to be motoring back and forth to pick some people up on Orca and bring them over to Susia. And it came in handy on this trip. We used probably 2 gallons out of the 3. So this is the tie down for the standard factory supplied wooden cradle for the mast. So I'll take that off, and then I have to go along the mast and take off the bungees. Unlocking of the Lazarette. Bungee cords used while I'm traveling. This is another device that I think the owner before me made. It's wicked handy. It's a, I guess you call it a gin bowl or something. It's used to create some good leverage on the mast for lifting. Go along the mast and take off the bungees that I use to hold the wires while I'm driving on the highway. And this is a real cheat code. This tool belt, oh my goodness. Yeah, that took me a while to figure that out. You put this on, you've got a spot for bungee cords, you've got tools for all the different nuts that you need to, well, they're all the same size really, but all the various nuts that you need to, nuts and bolts you have to loosen and tighten. I got clips on there. You'll see it comes in handy a lot. After this one, check this out. So the rear stay comes all the way up to the middle of the boat. And if you turn the corner too sharp with this backstay, it'll crack it. I already lost one strand. So I have two bungees, one on each side, that hold the backstay so that it doesn't have a sharp point on the wire. Sort of a more gentle curve. So that's what these two bungees are for. And then the side stays come here to this bungee, or this set of bungees. I have a rule basically where there's two bungees holding the key wires when I go down the highway. So if one fails, I've got a backup. So this is the second bungee holding the side stays. Alright, so now I'm ready to lift the mast onto the lifting pole. And on the top of the mast is my little prototype, which so far has been a full-time prototype. Here's another view on the same lifting onto the pole. Alright, so here at the front, I have the same system, two bungees. Another view, front view. Oh yeah, one trick is that this roller furler has a plastic extrusion, I guess you call it, that goes from near the top of the mast to here at the front. And I do my best not to bend that thing. You'll see that it sort of has a gentle curve right now. And as I move the mast, I have it attached to the mast, so it moves with the mast and tries to avoid any curves, sharp curves. All right, so here's a bolt that holds the foot of the mast to the front rail of the boat there. All right, and now when this comes off, you'll see another really handy homemade prototype. Normally I go straight onto the roller that you'll see in a sec, but here it comes. So this one is super cool. This one is super handy. Another prototype that's become permanent. It bolts onto the foot of the mast and it can roll freely on the deck. As a single-handed, many times, this comes in wicked handy. So basically, I usually set up the boat, and then my family comes afterwards. They're not sitting there for 2 hours while I get it set up. Because I still don't mind the setup process. For me, it's kind of fun. It goes reasonably fast, but they don't need to be around for it. So, real useful, handy roller for single-handed setup. And even, passes over the cleat, so it's pretty handy. Alright, now I should be tying the roller furler to the foot of the mast, so the mast and the roller furler move together to avoid any sharp bends in the roller furler. Yep, there we go, so they move together. Alright, now both ends have rollers, so I can be anywhere I need to keep the wires unjammed and roll the mast around. Okay, so now it looks like I can start rolling. Nice and easy, rollers both ends. First jam point is right there on my left hand. There's some brackets on the mast, so I gotta lift the mast up in a moment. Okay. Yep, now I've jammed up on those attachment points on the mast, so I gotta lift it up. So the whole thing slides nicely because the foot has rollers. Okay, now when you're rolling the mast, you really have to watch these wires. Make sure they stay nice and straight. The little loops aren't bound up in some weird way. Yep, make sure the loops are straight. Yep, there was one that was twisted. Fix that. And these low side stays need to be straightened out. Yep. They're the first ones that become tight when I bring the mast foot up. Those side ones, really watch out for that. And I bent the metal a little bit because I missed it once and I tried to force the mast up. So just pay attention, take your time. Yep, so I can roll the mast from anywhere on the boat. Pay attention to the wires. Make sure the spreaders are at the right spot in the wires. Sometimes they move a little bit. This is the rear stay, just getting that out of the way, making sure it doesn't bind up or get bent too sharply. Making sure that's straight. On the chain plate, I guess you could call it a chain plate. Okay, rolling again. Checking for jams. Okay, getting the lifting pole into position. Again, it sort of provides the right geometry for that one. Those little cleats used for flags, the flag halyard, those jam a lot on the line, so watch out for that. Okay, now I need to slide the foot to the final position, right there. You see those low side stays become tight first, so they have to be unjammed and straight, or else you'll run into a problem. So I take out my little prototype. And that's so handy having the tool belt that's just always ready to go. Okay, so now I just roll on the roller on the lifter pole is helping me out here. I just push the mast forward until the holes line up. And those stays, really, they have to be perfectly straight or you won't be able to make it. Wiggle that guy through and you should be set. These double nuts here, I don't usually rinse them. I just finger tight them. I haven't had any problems. One sort of jams up the other one. There's really not enough vibration to make them vibrate off. Just finger tight's okay for me. Yep, nice and snug. Alright, here comes the lifting pole, gin pole. So first I make that bolt go through the mast, the lower end of the mast. Those rusty bolts are actually holding on a reinforcement plate in the bottom of the mast. Somebody inserted a pretty thick chunk of aluminum in there. Haven't had any problems with that. So these clips really help keep things organized. When I was first doing this, the rope, the pulley system was getting all tangled, but this keeps it really neat and tidy and it's ready to go every time. So, same thing, jiggle that through. This has a lock nut washer, you know, with a little bit of plastic in it. So just a little snug, it's fine. The red and white rope clips onto a loop on the mast. There it is, that one. So there it is, clipped on. So now I've got a little triangle between the lifting pole and the mast made between the pole and the ropes. Okay, so now here's the bundled up lifting rope. And the pulley system is nice and tidy because of the way the clips work. That was a nice time saver. This one's nice and easy, just slips under and around. Okay, check this nice and straight. Here's another view. And then I just lead the rope back between the mast and the first day. Yep, check and make sure those lines are straight. Before you start lifting, make sure all those metal loops are straight. See, there's one that was crooked. And check again the side stays, make sure they're dangling straight. Yep, there's one that's jammed, so fixing that. Cool. Okay, so once you've got the gin pole on, you hook the extrusion for the roller furler onto the top of the gin pole to keep everything going together. Okay, so the mast is hinged. I'm just double checking everything. Should be ready for lifting. All right, here we go. So I just pull on that lifting pole. Oftentimes I'll push up on the bottom of the mast just to give it a bit of extra lift, but this time I didn't. I just straight lifted it off the pole. You can see the roller furler hanging in a nice curve. As I'm going up, it's oftentimes that the flag cleats will catch the lines. I think you'll see that in a second. So just go gently. If you notice any resistance, look around. It's pretty easy to see that there's something that got caught. There it is right there. Cleats caught. I can feel the pressure. Around this point it starts getting easier, of course. I keep an eye on the back stay, which you just saw there, to make sure it didn't get pinched or kinked. And then the back stay snaps in. Sometimes it has a curl, and at the last second it sort of undoes itself. It doesn't seem to do any damage. Okay, so it's raised, so I just pull it pretty firmly, snug, and wrap it around there. Once you get familiar with this, you'll know right away if you didn't do it right, because the front stay won't reach all the way down to the pin. So you'll see that in a sec. All right, so here's the handy dandy tool belt, getting the bungee cords away. All right, now on this one, you look at the top there. You have to shake it out a little bit. It's usually not hanging free, so you just give it a shake, and then it hangs free like that. So now it's hanging free, and I just pull it down, and I make sure that it touches, it knocks against the plate there, the metal plate. Then I know it's in the right position. It's long enough, because if it doesn't hit it, something's holding the mast back. All right, these little spiral wires that hold the nuts in are a bit of a pain. Sometimes it takes me a couple of minutes to get them sorted out, but I cut out some of that for you, so it's a little bit faster. Okay, so what I do is I insert the bolt on one side of the two prongs coming out of the roller furler. Then I hold it with one of my fingers, like my middle finger, and then I just sort of jerk it down like that until the pin finds its hole. It can be quite difficult depending on the tension that you've got set for your stays, front and back stays. In this case, it went pretty smoothly. It popped into place. I've got quite a bit of experience, so I'm able to make it jump into position. All right, so then putting on the little spiral pin. There, good to go. Okay, so the halyard for the jib, when you take the sail down, the halyard is very short, so it goes up the extrusion. So I have a little 550 cord there, the camouflage looking green stuff, tied to the end of the halyard, and that way I can lift the sail. It creates a loop. You'll see more of it in a minute. Okay, so this right here is the rolling furler line. So I'll run that through the eyes. Ends up I had one, the first eye was loose, I'll have to fix that. I'm just checking the other ones as I go along. Yep, just one was loose, and that's on this particular day, that very first one. So here it's unraveling a little bit. And it has a jam cleat for it. I usually go about, I don't know, 18 inches past the jam cleat and then tie a figure eight. At this point, yeah, something like that, tie a figure eight. Not that figure eight does much because it's a jam cleat, but it might help it running through all the eyes at least. Okay, so this little clip here holds the loop made between the 550 cord and the halyard. And this clip goes onto the tool belt at some point. And now it's unraveling, unwrapping the extrusion. There I clipped on the clip on the tool belt. And starting to straighten out the wires, or lines. So the extrusion has a hole in it, kind of, I guess you'd say, where the sail goes. So I was lining that up towards the back of the boat so I can get access to it with the sail. All right, here I am, making sure it's all unraveled and the two sides of the loop of rope are aligned where it needs to be. Okay, more on that later when I try and put the sail on. So the forestay is pinned, so the mast is finished. So I'm taking off the lifting rope. Sometimes I put an extra strap between the loop on the front of the mast and a cleat or a stanchion because I was a little nervous. Like the only thing holding that mast from falling backwards is that forestay. And if something goes wrong, that's bad news. But I've kind of become accustomed to it, so I don't bother. Okay, so here I'm taking the lifting pole off. So the first thing I do is put that pin in because I clip onto that pin the different pieces. So. Okay, so now I take that and I clip that onto that pin. Yep, there I'm clipping it onto the pin. And now I need to make that the piece between the pulleys long so that I can clip that to the bottom of the pole. So I'm doing that there. Okay, and then I'll tighten up the blocks just like that, and then loop up all the extra rope. So I leave a long bit and hold the bitter end in my hand, and then loop the little bundle with that loop I created, so it can create a little hanging point by passing it through the top loop of the bundle. There we go, and then I clip that onto the top of the pole, and it's packed up and ready to go. That system I built up over time, and for me, it's the most efficient thing so far. So. Okay, so here the lifter pole needs to go away, so I'm going to unpin the safety pin and the pintle of the rudder. Honestly, oftentimes I don't use that. It doesn't seem like it's ever wanting to jump out of its holder, but better safe than sorry, I suppose. Okay, so that lifter pole I just put away, leaning against the boat for now, and I'll put it away in the truck later. I don't go sailing with it, I leave it in the truck. Same thing with the wooden lifter cradle that comes with the boat. Okay, so I'm moving on to the rudder. Now that the pintles are free, because I took the lifter pole off, I can put this rudder in place. So it has to be folded so it doesn't hit the ground when I'm on my way to the boat ramp. That metal thing is an aluminum motor mount that I created from an old ladder, welded it together, and it's pretty awesome. I used to have a prototype, but that's one prototype I did replace with a production, I guess you'd say, whatever you want, a final version. Or not final, but you know what I mean. And it's working well so far, the aluminum motor mount for the electric motor. All right, ladders folded and cleated. The rudder in this case has both a lifter and a extender rope. So anyways, I cleated off the lifter, and here we'll put it on the pintles. It works out nice because you can put the bottom one first, and the front one is the top one is a little bit higher, so it's easy to work on. You don't have to get both of them exactly on the pintle at exactly the same time. All right, this one has I bound up the rope by mistake, so I had to redo it. The rope has to be off to one side, not twisted up into the pintles. And then eventually there's a safety pin that goes on that rudder. By the way, I have a checklist on my phone. Highly recommended. There's so many things to remember, like putting the safety pin on your rudder and so many other things that you want to have a checklist for every step, whether it's trailering down the highway or taking the boat down the ramp or taking the boat up the ramp. There's always things to think about. I'll try and put my list in the description of the video. All right, this is the wooden tiller. And this wooden creation is for the autopilot, because the autopilot manual tells you exactly where the pin for the autopilot needs to be, and that was mid-air for me, so I had to create this system. Okay, so that wooden cradle for the mast, that's going to go in the truck, and the bracket that was holding that mast cradle is now going to bear down and pin down my one end of my autopilot. So the autopilot is covered with epoxy, and it has rubber plates that keep that wood there from cracking up when you screw down on it. Okay, so here goes the tiller. One thing I hear that the new tiller you can buy for these boats, rudder and tiller combination, really tighten it up, and it works a lot better with the autopilot. I struggle somewhat with the autopilot because it's a lot of slack. I'll see what I can do to tighten that up over time. All right, so here's the pin that holds the tiller. As usual, just jiggle that through. All right, and this is where I had grabbed the wrenches from the tool belt. I have two of them exactly the same. And I tightened down pretty firmly on this rudder so that the tiller handle is pretty stiff in terms of trying to raise it and lower it. And I do that to try and avoid as much slack as I can in the turning and how it turns, because the autopilot's a bit fussy on how loose it is. And again, I'll work on that. I have an endless list of to-dos, but it's enjoyable projects. Oh, and yeah, I think the electric motor mount does reduce the overall turning radius that you can achieve with the tiller, but it's not a game changer as far as I can tell. And eventually it hit the motor, the gas motor. All right, here's the cheap used electric motor I got. It has a long shaft, I guess you'd say, a long pole that pushes it down deep enough for this boat. And I don't know, it's like $100 or something used. And it's got like 50 pounds of thrust, 55 pounds of thrust. But it's really nice. I love being able to move along quietly sometimes. Sometimes we'll leave a dock early in the morning. I don't want to start the motor, so I just use that. Sometimes we're coming back at night on the lake, and that's nice just to quietly move along in front of the lights of the city, and just enjoy the quiet of the evening without the motor, that gas motor. It's also a backup in case the gas motor dies, which this one does. It's not very good at low idle. It'll often, not often, but it'll sometimes die if you're not paying attention. All right, so I clipped the back of the boom onto the backstay. It came that way with a clip for it, a lifting clip. And sorry, I wasn't looking down far enough for you to see this, but I'm attaching the boom to the mast with a pin. I guess that creates the gooseneck. We do bring the lifter pole with us. The reason being sometimes you have to go under a low bridge or something. You might want to be able to bring the mast down. That's one reason anyways. I suppose there could be other reasons, but that's my main reason, just to make sure I have that flexibility, because I have done that before to go under a bridge. All right, so here's the autopilot. It's okay. It leaves a bunch to be desired. It gets rattled by the vibrations from the motor, and it's affected by the magnetic field from the motor. So if you lift the motor up, it'll throw off your bearing. And also the autopilot tends to self-destruct if it can't seem to steer the boat in the direction you want. I don't know if it creates damage to the gears in the autopilot, but it sure sounds bad when it gets to the end of its range and it's just crunching away, trying to go farther. I don't know why they allow it to be built that way, but anyway, so far it hasn't stripped the gears, but I worry about it. We did adjust the calibration of the autopilot to be a little bit less, be more relaxed, and that seems to help, but still, I need to tighten the whole rudder system up to make it better. Okay, yeah, so here is a line. This comes from experience. There is one electric motor of mine at the bottom of the lake because I didn't have a checklist at the time that said tighten your motors, and I forgot to tighten the electric motor onto the bracket, and it fell off in the water, and that's the end of that one. So now I have a leash, and I have a checklist. Make sure that thing is tightened down. Oh, and it did pop off once, and the leash saved it, so this motor was saved once by the leash. And this is a big red epoxy thing I created to replace the little nut that used to be there. It was so hard to use that little nut to tighten the motor, because you have to lean off the back of the boat to adjust it, and that little nut was crazy. So this one's much better. Of course, it's so big it stripped out the original nuts, so that's why I have a metal band with a replacement nut going on there. Motor's tightened. That's not going anywhere, hopefully. The lifting pole and the wooden cradle, those go in the truck. I'm not going to bring those. And we brought, we were going out for 5 days, so we brought something like 9 gallons of water, because they have water on the island, and I don't think we even used all those 9 gallons of water, because we used some of the water on the island for like taking a solar shower and that kind of stuff. Okay, so pretty basic stuff here. I got a little portable power solar generator thing and just use that to run the pump. I think we have another manual pump as a backup in case something goes wrong with that approach. And here in this case I ended up using some silicone to grease up the fittings just to keep them in good shape. It's a super old Zodiac that's I got it for a couple $100, but it does the trick. So far it holds air and otherwise well behaved. I didn't get oars with it, unfortunately, so I'm trying to get those. Alright, so I don't bring the light bar sailing, so that goes in there as well. That's the cover for the electric motor mount. Prevent it from scratching up the boat when it's in storage. Here I'm loading up the bimini. And the bimini, as you'll see, it just sort of sits on the side of the hull on each side. It has forward and backward ties, like there it is being clipped onto the push bit. But the pivot point just sort of rides along the edge of the side of the boat. It hasn't seemed to cause any problem at all. It's plastic on fiberglass. So far so good. It's a cheap $100 bimini. And you could catch a glimpse of the spare spring that we have attached to the trailer. That was for the Alaska trip. We have 2 spares on the trailer as well for the Alaska trip. We didn't need either of them, but there's one on each side in case the trailer blew a tire. Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry I'm not looking down far enough, but you'll see barely that I'm attaching a strap that goes through that little loop. I don't know what that loop is for, but we use it for the bimini. And it just wraps around the foot of the bimini to hold the foot against the hull. And the other straps front and back keep it from flying away. But these straps just hold the little foot against the hull. Yeah, it just sits like that. Haven't had any problems. Okay, running over, checking things. Looks good. I actually look at my phone later. I don't think I have it on video, but I look at the checklist on my phone to make sure that I didn't forget anything, and I'm almost always catching something. And I'm still adding to the list years later. All right, same deal as the other side. Strapping the strap, a different kind of strap in this case, but wrapping the strap around the foot of the bimini. Good to go. Okay, so this is the power cord cable for the electric motor. This has gone through an evolution as well. Now I've actually drilled a hole in the side of the boat, and I have a 50 amp, I think it is, through all there. And that works out awesome. So I do have a safety procedure where I don't like to leave the motor powered up while we're using the ladder, of course, or while we're on shore. So I just unplug it after testing that that's okay. The other plugs there are solar, and here I'm using the one plug for the autopilot, and the plug next to that is a cigarette lighter that can be used for a solar panel to charge the, well, I think that's the only thing it's used for, is used to charge the lead acid battery. The switches that you saw next to my left hand, one of those is for red lights that are in the cockpit and the Lazarette, and another one is for the fuel fumes blower that's in the Lazarette. We don't use that one because we don't put fuel containers in the boat. That's only on deck, and that's for safety. Plus, we sleep in the boat. We don't want to smell any fumes. It's starting to look complete. Okay. 3-gallon gas can for the motor. This is just regular unleaded. No idea how many hours are on this motor. I should probably change the impeller, but so far so good. Alright, the front berth of the boat, you'll see as the video goes along, it's totally packed. We've evolved to the point, instead of people sleeping up there, we just use it for cargo. So I've got 3 solar panels on this trip. Normally I just have 2. But we brought the extra solar panel because we're testing an induction cooktop, which worked out great. So here you can see on the solar panel, I've added little tie loops with stainless steel brackets and screws. And they're pretty handy for tying the solar panel onto the boat. Luckily it just rests on the push bit, and we haven't had any trouble with that. Alright, and this is another hole I drilled in the boat to put a pass-through for the solar panel. So now the Lazarette doesn't have any cables running through it. It used to have the electric motor cable and the solar cable, and yeah, now it has nothing. So it can stay fully closed. Alright, here are the dock lines, getting those ready. And letting loose the halyard for the main. And hooking up the radio antenna and the power for the mast light. I have had the antenna cable detach from the through deck fitting, so you might check that from time to time. the deck has some repairs going on right now. I'm learning and practicing with fiberglass repair, gel coat repair, basically. All right, before I handle the sails, I use a wipe to keep the sails as clean as I can. Sometimes I try and, well, generally before we leave the house, I try and wash the deck in case the sails are rubbing on the deck. I just try and keep them as clean as I can. I suppose I can always wash them later, but in case you wanted to see what the specs of the jib sail were, that was that. So we probably owned the boat for 3 months before I figured out how to use the roller furler, but now it's goes pretty smooth. Got its little quirks. Just wrapping up the bag. The sail starts off into the extrusion before you can reach it with the halyard, so you got to do that first. And then I'm grabbing the halyard helper, I guess you'd say. Okay, so with the top of the jib in the extrusion, I can attach this part of the halyard. I just use a bowline for everything, pretty much. Sometimes a figure 8. Okay, so just a simple bowline on the top of that jib. Haven't had any trouble so far. Just make sure I have a long enough tail that it doesn't pop out. Okay, so the halyard has its 550 cord helper at this point, and I can start feeding it through into the extrusion. There's a little hole right there in the extrusion that the bead of the sail has to go into. So just take your time and guide it in there. I try and, the channel of the extrusion is, I grease it with silicone from time to time if I notice that the sail is having trouble sliding. And that silicone has been working great. Because the little black slider that's coming down the extrusion as I'm lifting the sail, it's a little worse for wear. One day it may break on me. It seems to be some sort of a hard rubber, black hard rubber that seems to be becoming brittle. But so far it's hanging in there. All right, so now I finally got a hold of the actual halyard. So all that was done just with the 550 cord. So here I am undoing the 550 cord. It's a figure 8 knot tied to the proper halyard. And the 550 cord gets wound up and shoved in the tool belt. Yeah, the tool belt's really handy as you're moving around the boat. Everything you need is there. You don't have to go back in the boat and get something else or forget something in the boat. It's all with you as you move around. It saves time. I think my best time is probably an hour and a half, maybe closer to an hour, depending on what I leave out, if I'm going for speed. And the tool belt's a big part of that. Okay, so now I've got the halyard. I can finish it. I try and pull straight down along the extrusion, so I'm not pulling away from the extrusion. And remember when we started the jib, the head had to go in first before you attach the halyard? The bottom end has a quirk too, where the bottom end goes past the hole, and then it goes down again past the hole. So it goes in the hole and then has to be backed up down the extrusion towards the foot. Okay, you can see it there. You're going past the hole that you shoved it in, it goes down past the hole, like that. And now, there's another wire pin, wire loop to deal with. I shortened it for you because I struggled with this for a while. Foot of the sail goes through that. Attack. pin going on. Pretty sure I shortened that one for you because that took me a while to. Should come up with a speed solution for these little pins. Okay, now it's tacked in there, and I pulled the halyard snug. And now the way I do it is I put it through twice, the little hole built to the top of the roller furler. And I just pull it tight and do a bunch of half hitches. So it's basically a round turn and a bunch of half hitches to attach it to the bottom. Okay, round turns are done, and here's all the half hitches. And basically I do enough half hitches until the little loose end there is not at risk of getting fouled up inside the furler as it's going in and out. Then I shortened this up for you too because it's a lot of half hitches. All right, jib is almost ready. Yep, so here I'm sorting out the jib sheet into the port and starboard. And then I'm going to run them through the eyes on the deck. I've been debating with myself whether I go outside the lifelines on this first one, but so far I've always had it inside the lifeline, so just going with that for now. And once I get it all the way back there past the winch, there's a enclosed jam cleat, and I do a figure 8 after it. And I keep a little tension on the jib sheet while I'm doing the roller furling to make a nice tight bundle. And I usually do a 1 or 2 wrap to keep it safe against being picked up by high winds. All right, doing the other jib sheet. And just a quick example of loading all the luggage. So all of this is, well, most of it anyway, is going to go up into the forward V berth. And so we sleep under the cockpit, in the queen size bed, and on the bench right next to the queen size bed, the one on the port side. Here's an example of all the bags getting loaded. So this is the main sheet with the boom. I added a clip on the top. That's a huge time saver compared to what was there before. And the bottom has its already came with a clip. All right, main sheet ready. Put a figure 8 on it. Oh, that's right, before I put a figure 8 on it, I use it as a outhaul. Because again, for single-handed, when I'm trying to slide the foot of the sail out the channel on the boom, it doesn't just go, you have to pull it. So I rig up the main sheet tail to pull the foot of the sail for me when I'm single-handed. I don't like to bother the family with trying to help me set up the boat for the most part. Obviously today I have some help. Okay, so I'm hunting to make sure that things are reasonably laid out. Find the clue of the mainsail foot going into the channel. I'll go with that as far as I can until finally it doesn't slide anymore and I have to use that main sheet. It oftentimes gets caught up on those 2 cleats you saw there. Okay, so now I'm grabbing the main sheet tail and I just do a simple overhand knot real quick to hold that while I pull on the other end around the cleat. And that works just fine for pulling the mainsail's foot out. Feeding it through the channel while pulling on the main sheet. sure you don't have any wires sticking out of your stays or rip your sail. They try to keep them away from. They're trying to keep the sail away from the stays for that reason. Okay, when you get to this point, the main sheet's not able to pull anymore. It's kind of getting jammed up on that end. So you just sort of bustle it in a little bit to get that tack there. All right. Now to go put a real outhaul on that. Okay, and there's the real outhaul. There's a figure 8 for the main sheet. Okay, so the outhaul. Alright, I wasn't looking down enough for this, but you get the idea. Pull it snug, wrap it around that cleat, and then I just wrap the loose end around the cleat and over again, and a little half hitch to finish it off. There it goes, wrapping it around. And that's what it looks like. Okay, so now I'm just sorting out the leech of the sail, making sure I've got all the sliders ready to go. And getting the halyard off. Sorry, I didn't show that clearly. Making sure the lines are clear, straight. Okay, then I'm going to attach it to the top of the sail. I'm sorry that I didn't video right that. There it is, there attached to the top of the sail. And now, just making sure that all the sliders go in. Once upon a time I did miss one, so I gotta pay attention. As it goes along and fast forward here, you may see the reefing lines. The sail only has one. And I made little lines, and I attached them to the reefing holes, so it's ready to go. On the tool belt I've got straps. Oh, here I've got some black tape, electrical tape. I just used that above the sticker on the mast there to prevent the sliders from coming out. The boat actually came with like a special little nut that goes there, but lost that promptly. So now I just use electrical tape. Wrap it 3 times, I think, is the rule, and then it's good to go. Oh yeah, so about reefing, I've only got 1 reef point. I would like to have 2, so maybe I'll figure out the sail sewing later. Make a 2nd reef point. Alright, flaking the sail down. And then batten time. 4 battens on this sail, short one on top, 2 long ones in the middle, and a medium one on the bottom. Sorry, I didn't look down far enough. Fast forward, the rest of the battens are all the same. Jam them in the pocket. Get the head down into the little stopper. Okay, so now I generally pull the sail over to one side of the boom, and then I sort of wrap it into itself. It creates its own little pocket, you know, and then I bungee it onto the boom. Yep, just like that. See, little pocket, the sail in it. So all those bungees come out of the tool belt. I got a small one for that side, I got a longer one for the head of the sail. And I generally capture the halyard with that front bungee, and then I pull the halyard tight. Yep, you can see there. And that makes a pretty good system for holding everything down in the wind. And then, in this case, I'm just throwing a pile of halyard on the floor, but on the deck, but I really should tie it onto use a bungee on the mast to hold it down. All right, so here I'm working in the V-berth a little bit. You can see some of the bags starting to accumulate in there. And here I'm getting rid of I'm done with the tool belt. So I just flip that up and put it next to the companionway. It's a handy little thing. This is a fishing vest that I put all kinds of little survival things in the pockets. It's got my handheld radio in there, so I can hear the radio from the cockpit. Otherwise, I can't hear it. It comes in wicked handy. It's got flares and other stuff. And here, just to give you an idea, when we're underway, I have a lot of my sort of sail gear right there in my bed. Otherwise, that bed's empty when we're at anchor at night or at the dock. All right, open up the front hatch. Let some air flow as we're sailing. Or motoring in this case on this day. Yeah, that's the front hatch. Oh yes, check the radio. For some reason when this radio turns on it defaults to monitoring channel 72. I prefer monitor 16 and 9, but if you press a button it'll do it. Okay, just a quick final look around. Starboard side. Boat is ready to go to the boat ramp. And port side. Ends up we deflated the dinghy when we're out on the water because it was holding the boat back by a full knot, and we had 6 hours of motoring to do, so we just crumpled it up, folded it up, put it on the front deck. We don't know what side of the dock we're going to be on yet, so the fenders are just standing by in the cockpit. When the boat is launched, the ballast water inlet valve is generally open and it will start to fill. We close the inlet when we can touch the surface of the ballast water with a finger through the observation/air pressure relief plug hole. We close the inlet valve firmly. If you don't, it can add more water as you're sailing and it'll spill out into the bilge and you hear the bilge pump come on. Ready to go to the San Juans. And just a few pictures of why this is all worth that effort. Great family time, beautiful scenery. That was a while the bird came to visit. Night at the dock. Mount Baker. Day at the dock at Sucia Island. Tide pooling. Seeing some amazing critters. Induction cooktop and a coffee maker worked great. In summary, this boat has been a lot of fun. As a hobby, it's endless learning and interesting projects like electrical, solar, battery, plumbing, welding, small motors, trailer axles and brakes, and so many more things. Thank you for joining and happy sailing.